Aris, and I am a psych major and a theater minor. And I became interested in research because I would like to be a professor in the future. And I know that for graduate school, I need to have a lot of research experience. So I've been trying to get involved with that since I got on campus.
Oh, that's nice. Is there any reason why you are minoring in theater? I thought it was really interesting.
I'm minoring in theater because I think it's the easiest way to make friends in college.
Oh,
Like,
really?
mhm, because at Berkeley, at least, you meet for like 6 hours in person every week, aside from Corona.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, so you just get to talk to everyone a lot, and you get to be in a very like intimate environment with people. And so I think it's very easy for that to translate to friendship outside of the classroom.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, well, I kind of looked over your LinkedIn information and I was wondering why, as a neuroscience and psychology assistant teaching advisor, what kind of advice would you like to give for the beginners who are just getting to know research program?
Mm, I would say don't be disheartened by rejection. I at the very start, you hear a lot that it is very difficult to get into research, but once you're in, you're sort of allowed to keep going because then you have professors who can vouch for you and things like that. So, like when I applied for my first lab as a freshman, I was rejected because I didn't have any prior research experience or GPA or anything like that. And then I got involved in sort of like some sideline research stuff, like a research journal at my school that wasn't led by a professor. And I think that helped me get into like a proper lab, I guess if you'd want to call it that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I know that there may have been a lot of ups and downs while you're conducting a research. And what is the hardest, what is the struggle that you went through? Like the thing that you like still remember?
I remember one of my labs would give me a lot of work and sort of a lot more than I was expecting or thought I had agreed to. And so I would end up working for like over 15 hours a week for this one lab where I had signed like a 9 hour contract or something. And it was pretty miserable because it was a lot of just like grunt work. And that was definitely a challenge because I felt very overwhelmed
Mhm.
with what they were giving me.
Okay, I see. Um, so I know that you're majoring in psychology, but then as you mentioned, you wanted to become a professor. So, what kind of, I know that there's a lot of concentration in psychology. So, what kind of concentration would you like to teach? What's your interest?
I think my interest would probably end up teaching some sort of social psychology.
Hmm.
I'm specifically interested in researching things on like communication and interpersonal bias and like perceptions of other people.
Hmm. Okay, that's really cool.
Thanks.
Um, is there anything you think it's cool to as a psychology major, like anything cool that you learned, anything that was like interesting?
I have a lot of favorite facts. Um, I really like evolutionary psychology,
Oh yeah,
especially
uh-huh.
evolutionary social psychology.
Hmm.
And one thing is like if you look at people's eyes, there's, the white in our eyes. And as compared to a lot of other species, they don't have that same whiteness. And so it's harder to see where they're looking and sort of what they're thinking in that way.
Hmm.
And so the hypothesis for why humans have so much white in their eyes is because social and because we use it as cues to like track what other people are talking about or indicating. And it really helps us with just communication and stuff like that.
Oh, so you're saying like your eyes are like second window of your communication or something? Like,
Yeah, like humans specifically developed the whiteness in our eyes so that we could see where our pupils are looking.
Oh, that's so cool.
And like apes don't have, like other apes don't have that, or not nearly as much, because they aren't as social as humans.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. Like thinking about my dog doesn't have any
Mhm.
white spaces in his eyes. Ah, that's so cool.
Right?
Oh, I love psychology. I think it's really interesting. So before, like, I think we as a CRC, we are just like a beginning to conduct the research, and most of us haven't done any research yet. So I was wondering, is there any bad habit that we shouldn't build, we shouldn't have?
Yeah, I think one bad habit that people can try to have is like trying to like outsmart like
Oh,
science or something. Like, oh, well, if I just phrase it this way, it'll seem more like scientific. Or like if someone doesn't get good results, or if their study doesn't seem to be measuring what they think it is, what they are presenting it as, I think
mhm,
people try to even like unconsciously present it as something better than it is.
mhm.
Um, and the thing is, like, people will definitely see that you're doing that and won't
Okay.
like it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's what I've learned, I think, from working in the psychology journal, because we get a lot of submissions. So I would say be like humble about your work,
Okay.
and definitely bulk up your limitations section, because especially as undergraduates, there is a lot of limitation to our access to resources,
Mhm.
and just experience with analysis and things like that, I think.
Okay. I think that's really good to hear. Yeah. Thinking speaking of resources, where do you usually get your resources when you're doing research?
Mm. So I typically just sort of use whatever resources the professor has or has
Uh-huh.
taught me. But honestly, like for literature reviews, Google Scholar is a best friend. Um, for literature reviews, a site called Connected Papers is also a best friend. Like
Okay.
they, in that one, if you look up a paper, it shows you papers, and it shows you sort of how closely it's related and what year things were published. So you can sort of track things really easily through there visually. I would also say talking to graduate students is
Mhm.
really helpful. They have more like formal training and experience,
Mhm.
and they'll be able to offer a lot of great advice, and they're a
Mhm.
really good resource.
Mhm. Okay, so I think it's going to be one of the questions that I really wanted to know, like I personally wanted to know. So I'm taking bio classes, and then my bio professor told me that some of the researchers are really biased because you may build your hypothesis depends on your, like they just assume that the result, they kind of know the result. So they build a hypothesis depends on based from the results. Does it make sense?
Mm,
Yeah, so I was
mhm.
wondering if your hypothesis were ever different from the result, then what happens? Does it just go, is it like a bad, do you count that as a bad result? Bad research?
No, I would. So this, I think, I would also draw from the journal that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I guess, to just be clear, is like a psychology research undergraduate
Mm-hmm.
journal. But in there, for example, if you've really done a good literature review,
Mm-hmm.
then you know what the field thinks of a certain problem. And if you find something that is unexpected, that could point out problems in the literature,
Mm-hmm.
and problems that people, that there's some detail that people aren't actually paying attention to.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so I think that as long as you're truly trying to like actually work from the literature and then test out a hypothesis, anything you find will have some sort of value.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's really meaningful. So if you have a lot of resources and if you don't have any limitations or restrictions, what kind of research do you want to conduct in the future?
I would love to do things on um, I really enjoy like communication work, so maybe trying to track people's like problems and different relationships they have over time and ask the separate people like what problems are going on, what they perceive the problem to be, and try to see how you can get these people to understand each other with a lot of different problems over time and see if there's like a more consistent way to help
Mm.
people understand each other and prevent issues like that.
What do you mean by the problems?
Like, I personally perceive a lot of things like fights and things like that to be like issues in communication where one person thinks something is true and the other thinks another thing is true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that could cause, yeah, a lot of like anger.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would want to hope to reduce that with
Yeah.
research. So I think doing like a long term detailed track of people's conflicts as they come up in relationships
Mm-hmm.
and trying to see how they could be resolved correctly or what makes them not get resolved.
Okay. I think that's like a really important issue that we need to improve. I think it's like a common, yeah, like these days it's really easy to get wrong information and then think that we're right. And um, while you're doing research, can you tell me anything that what you have learned from the research? Not about academically, but um, just like any habits that you should like you learned that, oh, I should improve on this, or I think that's a really good habit that I think this is a good habit to have, or something like that.
Yeah, I think definitely a great habit is checking your email often and setting
Yes.
limits. No, checking your email. It's like it's. I have to check my email so much. If I like take a weekend away from it, I'll see that I have an assignment that is then due a lot sooner than if I had checked. But yeah, also I think being able to set limits and say like, hey, I have a test coming up, so I really don't think I can make this deadline by when you
Mm.
said. Can we please adjust that?
Oh,
I
okay.
yeah, I think labs tend to be a lot more receptive to that than it seems. And I think that that is definitely a good skill to have with any work environment.
Hmm. Um, so I think this is going to be our last question. And hold on. So our CRC team is doing a research on COVID-19, psychological, sociological, and economical, that kind of stuff. And if you were in CRC team, since you're a psychology major, how would you relate COVID-19 to psychology?
I'm so sorry. I think my internet cut you off at part of
Oh,
that
oh, okay,
question.
sorry. Yeah, okay. So our CRC team is conducting a research in four different categories, which is psychology, sociology, economic, and political, I think. And then since you're a psychology major, I was wondering if you were our team, what kind of research topic would you have done?
Mm. I think I would be really interested to see how people's perceptions of appearance have changed in COVID-19.
What do you mean by appearance? Can you
Um,
elaborate?
so yeah, for sure. I think that since people are spending a lot more time inside and
Mhm.
not necessarily, especially students, not necessarily having to show themselves to other people with cameras off and things like, I imagine that people have picked up different sort of self-maintenance habits, like changed how they wear makeup or not, or how they dress.
Uh-huh.
And I would wonder if that has changed the way they perceive themselves physically and like attractiveness and other people. And I also think there tends to be a different standard because I think sort of things like TikTok have become more popular and a lot of people on there will dress very elaborately. But in real life, I think we aren't seeing many people dress very elaborately or dress up too much because everyone's kept inside. And so I would just sort of wonder if I could get data on that pre-COVID and then compare it to the present, like how things would have changed.
Okay, I think that's a really good research topic. I hope one day someone could do the research on that. I think that's really interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's going to be it. And thank you so much for your time. I think